I got an email from Tony Fay and his group, which is a fantastic public relations, media relations group. I've known Tony forever. And they said, hey, would you like to have Eric Galko on your show? Oh, East-West Shrine Bowl. Like, we don't know who that is. But we do. There he is on camera. Eric, we've had him on many times before about the draft. He is 100 miles an hour and now running the 100th East-West Shrine Bowl, and he has in recent years. Man, good to see you. How you been, young man?
I'm doing great. We are a day away from our players arriving, from guys like Shedeur Sanders and Kenneth Grant and a lot of first-round picks. The guys might be the next Brock Purdy, so we're excited to get our week started.
Eric, you have, again, like Shedeur Sanders is probably, we'll start with him.
Yeah.
He is, if he gets past what pick, would that shock you?
I have a hard time thinking that, for one, we saw last year quarterbacks went 1, 2, 3, and then every quarterback needy team after that immediately took their guy. And I think we're in an age now in the NFL where you can't let good quarterbacks pass you by. So it's hard to answer that question for sure, but it'd be hard to imagine the Titans, Browns, Giants, and Raiders passing on him, not to mention teams that may trade up. So, again, the over-under might be pick 1.5, and maybe this week at the Shrine Bowl, on or off the field, can really help that piece of the process. But again, no doubt, I think the over-under is 1.5, and maybe at worst 2.5, 3.5, because he's that special of a player and a person.
Eric, Cam Ward, Shedeur Sanders. After that, where does your mind go when it comes to this quarterback class?
I think there's a lot of opportunity. I think last year we were spoiled by guys like coming into the year, Caleb Williams and Drake May coming into the year. Were looked at as like they're going to be franchise guys no matter what. And then we saw a historic season from Jaydon Daniels, a great year from Michael Penix and Bo Nix. Really a lot of guys emerge. And I think this year, guys such as Kyle McCord, who's going to be here at the Shrine Bowl, kind of left Ohio State, went to Syracuse, had a fantastic year. I think he's going to ascend this draft process. Quinn Ewers, right, a great year, a lot of public speculation and spotlight on him, up and down games, but he's really well liked by NFL teams. So I think those two guys at the top are going to be there. But I think we'll have 3 or 4 other guys battling for that number 3 spot. And I bet one of those guys at least goes in round 1. Too many teams still need quarterbacks. Mention the teams at the top of the draft, but also the Seahawks for what their next plan may be at quarterback. The Rams in the post-Matt Stafford era. Teams like that, the Steelers that are picking the back end of the first round also need quarterbacks too. So I think we'll see 3, maybe 4 go in the first round. But who number 3, number 4 are, I think the next 3 months will decide that.
Eric, there's a lot of things that go on between now and the draft, and you digest it, and I don't know how you don't get heartburn because you put so much into your system when it comes to the draft and prospects. What is the most important thing that a prospect, no matter big name or not, needs to do this weekend to catch attention?
I tell players all the time as I kind of prepare for this week, and NFL teams have watched these guys play on film for 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 years for some of these guys now with the new rules, and they've talked to their coaches, and they've seen practice, and they've seen live games. They haven't talked to these guys yet, right? Exactly 0 NFL GMs have talked to 0 players in this draft cycle, and this week is a chance for these guys to be really that first in-person expression, right? You can see these guys on film. You can watch Shedeur Sanders or Kyle McCord or Garmin Randolph, who's now coming to the Shrine Bowl from Baylor, be here and watch him on film and see how impressive he is. But talking to him can be a huge difference between a guy being a free agent and a draft pick, a late round pick to an early round pick, a third round pick to a first round pick. I've seen it every year, and I think the interview process is so important for these guys.
This is a fantastic year for running backs in the draft, and the NFL might be discovering an area that they have ignored because they let contract math get in the way of how football works, right? That's how it appears to me. Ashton Genty, Scadaboo, Amari and Hampton, you've got some really good ones. Like Corey Kiner, I believe, is at the game. Like, where do you see the running back class, and do you see this one being more maybe 1 or 2 day 1 picks and then kind of a bunch of day 2 picks at that position?
Yeah, I think for one, first off, Saquon Barkley, Derrick Henry, Josh Jacobs are good running backs. And I think sometimes you just want to have those good running backs in your team is always going to be a positive. And I think guys like Ashton Genty are really special. I think he's the one that jumps out to me as the guy that feels, hey, he can change the focus of our offense. I think too often we look at running back as this devalued position. But in my opinion, Saquon Barkley is the best player in the Eagles offense. And you want guys who be the best player in your offense. I think Genty can be that. But I think this year, like we've seen the last couple of years, the guys that can really win in open field, which I think guys like Genty and Amari and Hampton can really do, but also on third down out of the backfield. And we've seen so many running backs be valued and pushed up because of out of the backfield. And one guy I'll kind of throw in the ring that's one of those top 4 or 5 guys in this class is a guy coming to the Shrine Bowl, Jaydon Blue from Texas, who I think is an outstanding out of the backfield running back. And we're seeing more and more offensive coaches not only use a running back out of the backfield, but rely on them to run their offenses. And I think as you evaluate these running backs in this year's draft class, how they do as a pass blocker or an interior tough is good, but also how they do out of the backfield as a receiver is so important in today's NFL.
A couple of Big 12 running backs that you have on the roster there for the Shrine Bowl, Eric. Taj Brooks at Texas Tech, big-time player. Also Corey Kiner, Cincinnati. If you wouldn't mind, just your thoughts on both of those guys and just, where they sit and where they're headed.
Yeah, Corey Kiner, big-time recruit coming out of the state of Ohio. Went to LSU for a year, came back to Cincinnati, and had an incredibly productive last 2 years. I think for NFL teams, hey, if Corey Kiner's speed is good enough, he is viewed as a guy that's a plug-and-play, either number 2 or even running back 1 for some NFL teams. The speed checks out. I think he'll show that speed during the week of practice, but incredibly productive, powerful, compact interior runner that can play in the NFL tomorrow. And then Taj Brooks. I mean, he's done everything at Texas Tech the last 2-3 years. Should have been up for more of a Doak Walker consideration the last 2 seasons. But coming out of Texas Tech, he's a guy who's been running between the tackles, runs in space. And again, as we talked about, he can really work out of the backfield, both as a pass blocker as well as a pass catcher consistently too. So I think both those guys are draft picks and now showing NFL teams that their ability to make guys miss and be physical players inside the tackle box can translate to the NFL level. They'll show that this week and throughout the draft process.
The game is January 30th. It's the weekend in between the NFC and AFC championship games and, of course, the Super Bowl, which is wonderful. AT&T Stadium in Arlington, 100th edition. And it's great because you were there, you were a part of it, and then you now run it. Is that right, Eric? I mean, this is your baby.
Yeah, I've been going to AllStar Games as a scout and for part of it as part of a media for going on 20 years. And now I'm here for the last 4 years leading the East-West Shrine Bowl. And what an incredible event. I'm so thankful and honored to be part of the 100th year of this event. We've had 100 years of history from Gerald Ford to John Elway to Dan Marino to Mean Joe Green and all the way back and forth. We announced our annual 100th celebration year and all the players that are part of this event too. And it really is special to have some of the guys we've had the last couple of years now be a part of history. And we'll look back another 100 years and talk about Brock Purdy and Zay Flowers and people like that from just my last 4 years too. But being a part of the history of this event where for a majority of the 100 years, this was the creme de la creme of all-star games in college and a huge, huge event. And we're excited to make it a big deal again this year at AT&T Stadium for our 100th year.
And there's a lot of guys, but there's 3 of my favorite players, and they're all some variation of receiver. Rondé Gadsden Jr. at tight end, Nick Nash at wide receiver, and Ricky White. A lot of, maybe people haven't heard of him. Ricky White is an NFL player. I don't know if he's going to be a wide receiver or just special team. Dude blocks punts. Can you talk about those guys a little bit?
Yeah, I'll start with Ricky White. I love that you bring up the special teams piece of it too, because Ricky White, I think going tomorrow in the NFL, I think he blocked 3 punts this year or 4 punts this year, something crazy. He's an NFL player and on your roster no matter what next year. But I think we forget that also, despite being maybe a skinnier guy, he's been productive at UNLV. He's been a leader for that team. Remember that team had some, I'll say, quarterback drama to start the year, and Ricky White stepped up and took a leadership role too. So I know going through the draft process, and again, really starting here at the Shrine Bowl, GMs will talk to him and learn his story and be like, this guy can make our receiver room better, not just in stats, but in everything he can do for us. I think it's a great call out really by you. Nick Nash, the guy won the Triple Crown of receiving in college, right? Receptions, touchdowns, and yards. He led the country in all 3. And he's a guy who just about 4 years ago was playing quarterback in college. So he's still new to the position. And despite all that production, he's still growing as a player. Super, super impressive too. And then Oronde Gadsden. Dad played in the league for a long time as a receiver. Gadsden's kind of a tight end receiver hybrid. What he brings to an NFL team is actually very similar to what I think Mike Gesicki brings to NFL teams, where be a matchup guy, play in line, play outside, but inside the red zone, inside that 10-yard line at the goal line, Oronde Gadsden is the best receiver in this draft class, bar none, because what he can do as a one-on-one player.
And these are NFL coaches who are coaching them throughout once practices begin, when everyone arrives, and then all the way to the game. Is that very, very much important because they understand what the NFL is looking for?
Yes, sir. It's a chance for our coaches that are coaching in this game to get development, and they're all doing the one job ahead. So we've got Marquise Williams, the Atlanta Falcons special teams coordinator. He's a head coach. And then Shane Bowen, New York Giants defensive coordinator, is another head coach. And all our other coaches are doing one step ahead. So they get that great development and show other teams and coaches how they can handle that responsibility. Our players get a chance to work with current NFL coaches and learn from them and see what the NFL is going to be like. And then, of course, those teams having coaches here get a little extra insight. You know, the Tennessee Titans assistant QB coach is working with Shedeur Sanders. I'm sure that's going to be a little wrinkle he can bring to the table too. So it really helps everyone involved, and they've been great to work with. All these coaches are taking time after what was a long season for all these guys, a non-playoff season, and come down here to Dallas, support the hospital, be here for 100th year, work with these players. It really means a lot to us.
Eric, BYU had a surprising year for a lot of people. I mean, just kind of came seemingly out of nowhere towards the back of the preseason standings and arguably should have been a playoff team. You've got a Cougar there and Tyler Batty, who is a guy who a little bit older, he stuck around and came back and was a big part of that run. What do you like about Tyler Batty and just coming from that very respectable program run by Kalani Sitake?
Yeah, I think the guys coming out of that program the last even decade, but especially the last couple of years, are so pro-ready, right? They can handle life in the NFL and play tomorrow. I think Tyler's going to be that for sure. I think for NFL teams, it's not about if he fits their system, but what role they're going to need him for, right? He can play 3-tech or 4-tech. He can play in a 3-4 defense down. He's played on the edge at the college level and been productive. So I think for him, he's a versatile guy. He can play a lot of different spots for NFL teams. Leadership is going to be really impressive. But if you guys follow the AllStar games, those one-on-ones, O-line, D-line over all the cheap ones too, I think a good week here for him in that sense will make a lot of difference for him.
How intense does that get, those one-on-ones during practice week?
Yeah, I try to help our guys not feel too much pressure because it feels like a lot of pressure and everyone's there, but they get intense. I mean, a pass rusher may have 12 to 15 reps in one-on-one throughout the week of practice, and if he wins 10 of those, he's probably going to go up 3 rounds where he is right now, and same thing for the offensive lineman. So it turned out to see that, you know, as a stressful environment for these guys, but they're competitors, and NFL teams know it's a tough situation. But again, no doubt there have been guys who have made millions of dollars at an All-Star week just because of how they played in that O-line, D-line, one-on-one rep.
Eric, we really always appreciate your time, but you have Middlebury, and North Dakota State is represented. I think I saw Colorado School of the Mines, Lindenwood, Montana State, who obviously they had a hell of a run, Minnesota Duluth, and some of those programs. How huge is it for those players and those programs to get a shot here? Because these are guys that are here for a reason.
Yeah, I'll credit our scouting staff. They do a great job every year watching not just the Alabamas and Georgias, but the Minnesota Duluths and the Middlebury. And they've done a great job finding these guys, even before NFL teams sometimes realize how good they are. But no doubt it's huge this week. And I would say arguably those small school guys, it's probably the most important for them above anybody else, because this is a chance to say you belong, or if you don't have a great week, you don't belong in the NFL. And I think unfortunately for some of these guys, this week can mean more than a whole senior season of college film. But Thomas Perry's working with Duke Manyweather, one of the best O-line coaches out there all offseason. He's ready to go for this opportunity. Aiden Williams, Minnesota Duluth, that started games at left tackle and guard at Minnesota Duluth. He's played great players. He's going to have a great week. Cam Miller at North Dakota State. He's won across the FCS level. He almost beat Colorado earlier in the year too. So these guys are not just small school guys here for fun. They belong, and they're going to show NFL teams this week.
The Shriners Children's Mission, which of course is the title of the bowl game, the Shriner East-West Shrine Bowl. Unbelievable to be able to give to them, to those who need it, those who need help, and all the care as possible with the Shriners patients around the country. I love what you're doing, buddy. It's great to see you. We will have you on again. Tell Jonathan, Rob, and Tony Fay we all said hi, because when they said, hey, would you like to have Eric Galko? I said,
Never heard of him.
never. Who is he? And you're great at what you do. You know that. We appreciate it. We'll hope to have you on again soon.
Thank you, guys. Appreciate it. Good to talk to you guys. See you soon.
Eric Galko, who is 100 miles an hour.